As someone who is only vaguely familiar with the works of Doug TenNapel, it seems to me that the things he has worked on that I have read are usually very light on substance, but somehow still work for me on some level. For example, Tommysaurus Rex, written and drawn by TenNapel, is pretty light on characterization, and the plot is very simple, to the point where some might even make the mistake of saying that it has no plot. But it is still very emotionally engaging, and I found some of the jokes to be extremely worthy of out-loud laughter. It is a short read, so I'm very hesitant to go into much detail about the book, in case someone out there is interested in reading this in the future. But what I can and will say is that while I maintain that the book is light on characterization, I do think that what little characterization is here is masterfully given to us. Eli is our protagonist, and ordinarily I would go through the steps of asking what do we actually know about our protagonist. Really, not a whole lot. He seems like a pretty typical boy. He is energetic, he has a naive view of the world that will no doubt change as he grows older, and he likes to play with his dog Tommy. We find out from his dad that he has no human friends, and that's about all we know about him. And yet, sometimes, what we discover and learn about the protagonist isn't given to us in the form of information. Sometimes we can find out just enough of what we need to know just in what we are shown in very simple events in the book. A single panel of Eli laying in his bed crying is emotionally evocative, and it manages to be so without us knowing a whole lot about the main character. That's very incredible. Usually, if I don't know anything about a character and I see him crying, I'm not really going to care. But that's not the case in this book. The same is true for all of the characters in this book. The main antagonist comes off as extremely unlikable. I am flip-flopping on how exactly I feel about the main antagonist here. On the one hand, he's a pretty crappy human being. Without spoiling the book, he does some things that, even when he tries to apologize later on, I come away feeling that his apology isn't enough, considering what he's done, or it isn't really sincere, after the level of evil he has committed. And yet, we find out why he acts the way he does, and it is almost believable. I'm not sure if I find his actions justifiable after the explanation, but I do find him to be a more real human being after we find out more about him. The book is about a boy who has to train a Tyrannosaurus Rex, learning responsibilities along the way. I don't feel like that is too much of a spoiler, since this is stated on the back of the book. So if you have trouble swallowing plot elements like a boy finds a T-Rex in a cave, which aren't really explained at all, then you might want to skip this book. Likewise, the art is very shady in places, and I don't mean shady like sleazy, I mean there are lots and lots of shadows all up and down this art, and if you don't like that kind of thing, then you may also want to give this book a skip. The art is very crude, but it gets the point across, which in a way is a lot like TenNapel's storytelling itself. All in all, I think Tommysaurus Rex is a very worthwhile comic book. Much like another book I reviewed recently, Armor Quest, this book is a great thing to hand to a child that someone might want to get into comic books. It's not dumbing itself down for the sake of the child, but it is instead putting in just as many emotional elements and character arcs that I personally would want to have in a story aimed toward adults. This book is definitely one that fans of the art form of comic books should give a look at.